Hi, everybody. This is Will Bales, and you're listening to the RoboCast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Elliott64, and welcome back to the RoboCast with myself, Steve the American Killjoy, and World of Woodrow, and of course our guest for the week, Will Bales from Team Hypershock. Will, welcome
Howdy.
back. It's been a long old while.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back.
Good
Awesome.
to have you back. First thing I have to ask, given that Jevon is fully decked out, and I also have my Hypershock T-shirt, is Jevon the highest spender at the Hypershock store?
Jevon, do you want me to disclose this
We
information?
think no, based on the fact that I didn't buy one of the neon signs, and can I just say, I regret massively not.
I don't regret you making that purchase because getting those signs to their customers has been such a hassle. Every time we send a batch out, like 25% get broken. And then for whatever reason, the shipping companies are like, "Oh, well, that's a neon sign, so our insurance doesn't cover it." I'm like, but
You're a
you broke
shipping
it.
company.
Yeah. So you'll notice there are no neon signs on our website right now.
Though there was one in the audience this week, which I thought
There
was
Yes.
interesting. How they managed to wire that up to bring it along.
Yeah, they had a battery pack and an AC inverter just to run it.
No way.
Brilliant.
That's crazy.
I always think it's
Dedication to the art.
yeah, you're getting close to being one of the top spenders on the Hypershock store when Will leaves a little note inside your package saying you spend too much.
Yeah.
To be fair, most of the time it's because I keep asking him to buy stuff so we can halve the shipping costs. It's
Yeah,
just-
that
it's
is
not-
part of it.
Yeah, it's much more sensible.
I am gutted because I looked the other day and now that the new season 6 fan jackets are out and I'm like, I've missed it. Right, back on there. I'm going to save up these Hope Machine points. Let's go.
Jevon, it's okay to admit you have a problem, okay?
Yeah.
Hey,
We can get you help.
hey, I don't call it a problem. I call it an investment.
Well, instead of just talk about just the shop, let's talk about the robot for this season, Hypershock. From the outside, it looks very similar, but maybe to the untrained eye, but like if you kind of look at it a little bit more, it just seems there's quite a few differences. Why don't you talk us through a few of them?
Yeah, the more you look at it, it gets different, more and more different. The biggest thing that Kenny touched on was the increased wheelbase. So we lengthened the robot by I think 4 inches. So the distance between the two wheels is now I think 24 inches. We did that for 2 reasons. One, because it looks cool, and two, to improve the weight balance. Right. So one of the big problems is when you have this big vertical spinner in the front, it's very front heavy, and the center of gravity is at best a couple inches behind the front wheels. So the more you can push back weight, the better it is for handling. And what we noticed is when we increase that length, the driftability, if you will, has improved. So it's a lot more predictable when driving it, a little less likely to oversteer. And so driving it around the box, first time in that match, for certain, was pleasant, a lot of fun.
I mean, you see what you're talking about there, the sort of weight balance thing. It's demonstrated lovely later on in the episode with LockJaw, who's very sort of rocky. Obviously, they have the tilty weapon stack, but yeah, they very much tilt on their front, and the back end sort of leaps up into the air. So especially when driving backwards, it's a problem.
Exactly, they did the opposite thing. They're probably just as wide as we are long, and their wheelbase, their wheel track is our wheelbase, and vice versa. So they're very darty. I'm very able to turn on a dime, but it's really difficult for Donald, combined with the transmitter style, to drive in a straight line. And I think that's one of our main advantages is we can drive straight right across the arena and do a box rush and hit him in a second and a half, 2 seconds.
Pull the trigger.
Yeah, and away
exactly.
We go. Yeah. It does seem as well this season in particular. Obviously, we spoke a little bit last season when you talked about how you kind of got stranded abroad for the longest time, and then eventually you managed to get back, and then your teammate broke their leg. Was it while preparing for BattleBots?
Yeah.
This season,
so
it seems a lot more preparation and a lot more time has been given to actually putting it together before arriving.
Well, let's not get
I
carried
was going
away.
to say, because I heard rumors about this being built at the event again.
Oh no, you
Yes.
forget which team this is.
In hindsight, I should have thought.
So last year, yeah, Tyler, my longtime friend and teammate, he broke his ankle the week before we were supposed to leave. So instead of coming with us and being another, super duper smart engineer and tinker and electrical guy, wizard of electronics, he got to go into surgery the day that we were flying. So he didn't get to come to BattleBots. So we were definitely behind the 8 ball last year. This year, we showed up. At one point, we had 10 people. And yes, we did build everything, assemble everything for the first time there. And I did weld the chassis, the first chassis and the first wedge the night before from about 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. before we got on the plane. But one, we got very lucky in that things just kind of went together.
Yeah.
Two, leading up to that, the machine parts, all the sub-assemblies were being put together by several people, not just me. So there were a lot of people who knew how things went together. And third, just having so much horsepower on site, it meant that I wasn't the only one doing things. For where in previous years there were like all the electronics I was doing or whatever. Now we had 2 or 3 people who knew how to do it. Tuning motor controllers, tuning Vesks is a black art, and now Kyle, teammate, knows how to do it. So we have 2 Vesk wizards, and so when you have lots of people, then there's this weird thing where you can like not do stuff as the team captain. You can look around and you're like, oh, there's nothing for me to do.
What a nice
I'll
event.
go-
What a nice pit area.
Yeah. Then he starts saying stupid things like, oh, you know what? While you're at Home Depot, make sure you get some palm trees because we need some more ambiance. And we need some wood floor over here. Get some vinyl like wood flooring, and then
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what? Let's get a massive floor sticker so it really fits the bill. So and then I can focus on also robot relevant and focus on the finer things. So yeah, it was a much smoother event. It was the least stressed I've ever been.
It does come across in the fact, we'll get to the fight a little bit, but like this is the best I think I've seen Hypershock work out of the gate. Like it was, as I said, we'll get to the fight again in a bit, but it was just so impressive, and like it was imperious. We'll spoil it a little bit. It was very impressive.
Yes.
It was a good season. We in terms of starting out well, it was great. It kind of reminds me of season 4. So for those back home playing the even year /
I was just about to say, Will.
big year, more black on the robot, whatever you want to call it. It was a good start.
The more black on the robot one has definitely fallen by the wayside with this version. But it's always nice to see the yellow. But yeah, it is now even years. That is the the theory.
Good even years and redundancy not only on the robot but in the team itself too. So now having multiple
helps.
people know more than just a few things.
Well, this is definitely one of the bigger Hypershock teams that have come to BattleBots. This year, I would say.
Yeah, definitely the biggest we've ever had.
Well, we mentioned it a little bit. Let's talk about Fight 1 then, which was Hypershock and Slammo. How did you feel about the draw? Because obviously Slammo last season was its first season, in this format in BattleBots, and obviously Craig is so experienced. He's been doing this for a very long time. Was there a little bit of nerves?
The nerves. So, in a lot of ways, this is unfair to Craig. It was our fight to lose, right? So, anytime a robot that is not a spinner is up against a spinner, it's an uphill battle. I don't care who you are, but it's hard. All the spinners are so damn scary now. So
Believe it.
So I think Craig was a little nervous. We were nervous because once again, 6 times in a row, it's an untested robot. The most driving practice I've had is some donuts in the test box. We were feeling all right, but you never know. And so yeah, the biggest concern was, will it do the thing? The big scary thing in the back of our minds was this year we went to a magnesium weapon hub.
Oh,
we did that to improve the efficiency of the weapon, so that we have less spinning mass on the bottom, on the inside, so more kinetic energy efficient. MOI efficient. And two, then we could thicken up the weapon discs because we saw Witch Doctor having their issues with cracked discs.
Yes.
We had never had that. We didn't want to find out the hard way. So
No.
as we were stiffening up the front end of the robot, we said, okay, thicker discs, thicker engagement with the hub, and more material between the weapon axle and the ground to better transfer energy.
Well, go on. I mean, what I was going to ask was obviously you mentioned the weapons shattering there. Have you stuck with the S7 this year? Because there's been a lot of talk, back and forth this year with there's the amazing Witch Doctor video where you see the spare weapon they had.
The move of it and
it's all jiggly.
Everything.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, all of a sudden, Witch Doctor doesn't look so stiff, does it?
Yeah, it's very, very wiggly. But so you stuck
weird.
You stuck with the S7 then after all that.
Yeah, we were there when they did the testing. We also did some testing and we saw how jiggly everything was. Kyle has a write-up on our website, I think, about the weapons, and there's a GIF of us hitting the fake tantrum. But yeah, so we wanted to stay with S7 because we like sharp teeth. We like cutting through things. We're not looking necessarily for big hits. Our goal is to, cut parts out, put holes in you. And we think, based on the tooth geometry, that we can get away with it, whereas Witch Doctor and their very blunt tooth it just was too much for S7 to handle. So to hedge our bets, we increased it from 1 inch to 1.25 inches, so 25% increase. We kept our 57 Rockwell C hardness, harder than anyone else has any brains to do it. No one's this stupid. So we said, all right, well, so hopefully the weapon discs don't shatter, and hopefully the magnesium hub that we're sourcing from China doesn't just explode or turn into mush.
Nothing in BattleBots ever sourced from China has ever exploded in the BattleBots.
I've never seen it.
No, I mean, Gigabyte knows for certain that it's perfect every time.
Mm-hmm.
So we were nervous. It's a shop that we've used I've used them for over a decade, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel pretty confident in it, but you never know.
Of course.
So,
anything can happen in the battle box, can't it? Really?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were prepared for a match where we hit them once and the weapon just dies and we have to push. So that was our feelings going to the match.
And push you did. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say about Slammo is I loved the alternative setup with the kind of the grabbers. I thought that was very kind of Big Dill-esque, Krusty Grab-esque with the lip grabbers. It was really, really nice. And it's just a bit of a shame that they didn't really get a chance to do anything because you bullied them.
Not even a second.
I mean, we're fast.
Can you blame them?
No.
You got to keep up, man.
It's true. It's true.
It was a beautiful fight. I mean, it seemed like it was over so fast. And Slammo really spent more time on its head than on its wheels. And unfortunately, these aren't real 3D glasses, unfortunately. No, and we wouldn't be able to actually see the effect.
But it does. I think this is something we discussed in the preview. We asked the question, if we were to wear 3D glasses, will it pop? And the answer is apparently yes.
Yes.
I do want to try at some point. I just need to find a pair of 3D glasses.
Yeah. It was definitely
after Craig.
Yeah,
it's unfair for Slammo. He didn't get to show what he can do, and I know that robot was working very well before I started designing ours. So it's a bit of a disservice to
the thing I've seen a little bit online is people saying, "Oh, this is an unfair matchup for Slammo." And people need to remember that Slammo was actually seeded higher than Hypershock at the end of last season. Mm-hmm. This is a reasonably even matchup if you're looking at the 2020 results, or you went out similar areas of the competition, or in fact the same round of the bracket, I suppose. And
of course, they gave Witch Doctor a very hard time, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
And obviously, Hypershock and Witch Doctor are very, very similar with obvious reasons. But yeah, it was on paper. This was a match that Slammo definitely could have won.
Mm.
Yeah. Especially when we're so unreliable.
It's all part of the showmanship. And speaking of the showmanship, obviously we can see now. You can see you in your living room. There's no hair dye at the moment.
Not yet.
Well, will we see?
Well, yeah, but that was August. Was months ago.
Exactly. It was a long time ago now. Yeah. So you never know. We may see it. We may not. We'll have to wait and see.
but otherwise really solid fight and really solid opening for hopefully more wins to come. I'd hope it keeps humming the way it did in this fight, because if so, we got a very happy Jevin possibly coming up. Because
I mean, Hypershock is my shout for the season as always.
When is it not?
Yeah, I will live in hope.
For odd years.
Yeah,
It's the hope that kills you, right?
Oh, just dead inside by the end of it. But yeah, no, you gotta love it, and I've said previously online and everywhere that Hypershock is one of those machines that is showy not only in its robot but also its team, and it's a team that supports other teams. It's a team that always puts on a fun and interesting fight. Usually, it's always a team that always, just you really ham it up, and we saw it again in this episode with the sort of the run through and it's just fun. It's always fun to see Hypershock on screen, and that's what I love about Combat Robotics. It's a fun team. That's what I want to be. It's a fun team. We're doing fun fights.
I have one more question for you, Will, specifically for this fight, maybe fights going forward. How, with a robot that you drive like Hypershock, when it drives so fast and so fluidly, and we'll talk about it, I think, when we talk about the Claw Viper fight, because we'll get to that, because we're doing this on a Sunday again. We get to talk about the bonus fight. How do you handle the upper deck with a bot of your speed? And how does that affect your strategy going into a fight?
Because I know the amount of space you have to.
That's what I mean.
Around.
Yeah. So going into the event, it's funny. All the builders complained that, I was already building my robot when they told us.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't. I hadn't started. So I was the only person who, by all accounts, who hadn't designed anything when we found out about the upper deck.
Right.
The shelf of shame. And
I love it.
so I was worried. I was worried that, with those forks, we don't have the upper travel. They only move about up and down a half an inch. So the fear was that you get forked down on the edge of the shelf with all your wheels propped up and you're done. And so that was definitely a concern. Other than that, from a driving perspective, I was really worried. However, in this match, we went in for a hit on Slammo, and we actually hit the side of the shelf instead of Slammo, and we ruined a rim by just running straight into it.
I was wondering where the damaged wheel hub came from. So that was where it came from.
That was poor driving.
Take your driving award away.
Yeah, exactly. I'll ship it to somebody else.
No. Ship it to Jevin.
I'm not a good driver. God.
But yeah, so I personally don't see much issue with the reduced area. I do like the dynamic change of the corners and what you can do with the shelf. And there are some more fights later on, just in general, that do better. They make better use of the shelf, and I think you'll enjoy them. So by all means, it was getting used to it. Tombstone and Captain Shredder were the first fight of the event, and everyone was convinced they'd be ping-ponging off that thing the whole time. But they were so nervous of that they didn't touch it at all.
No,
so
they were too busy having fires and losing weapons and things.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Fine, just stick in the middle.
So yeah, so you'll see as the season progresses, you'll see teams get more comfortable with it. You'll see teams get killed by it and just hate its guts. And so I'd love to do a poll after the event and see how everyone feels.
Yeah, definitely. I wait on bated breath to see what happens.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those things that everybody has judged before going in, and then we'll judge continuously throughout. But I want to try and be objective with it and say that the shelf giveth and the shelf taketh away right up until we've seen the final fight of the season and go, right, here's what we think.
Yeah.
It's the first really major change to the box since they added pistons. You know what I mean? And then they took them away because they ruined fights. So, I mean, besides taking things away out of the box, where now they just have kill saws and screws and stuff like that. You used to have ramrods and spinners, and then they realized, man, I guess that just affects the light guys now. So we're just doing heavies, even though the kill saw. Anyway, let's just move on, because I can talk about hazards forever.
Let's move on then to fight number 2, which was between Valkyrie and P1.
What a fight!
Yes, big up
wonderful.
P1. Do you know what?
Yeah.
Okay, obviously, we'll talk about maybe a little bit, but like obviously P1 maybe a little bit unfortunate to not get in the bracket last year. They've gone away. They've kind of looked at themselves and said, okay, here's what we need to do to build a robot to make sure there's no ambiguity. Let's go secure ourselves a spot in the bracket. And they really came out for Valkyrie in this fight and earned the win, didn't they? It was very impressive.
I mean, a defeat against last year's most destructive robot is a big first match win, to be honest. And it wasn't as if they even just wedged them to victory. They put that flipping panel into harm's way and really utilized it. Maybe it didn't do that much. It didn't flip Valkyrie over per se. Valkyrie did more of that by itself, but it was really giving Valkyrie some grief, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to see. Like go Hellbow.
Oh, I was surprised, impressed that Brandon put it in the way. Flipping that up into a weapon like that, it takes cojones. So my hat's off to him for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good fight overall. I was hoping that we were going to have a similar instance where we saw the Tombstone Federator fight where a geometry kind of helped deflect this really massive spinner, and we saw it again. I was worried that we were going to see Sidewinder again, where it would tear up the wheels. You know what I mean?
I mean, it did manage to take one out.
It did. It clean off, but it stuck in, and P1 really is improved, and it's determined clearly to not have last year define it, and have it barely miss out on the tournament, and it beating a really classy foe in Valkyrie, just chaotic energy. It was pretty impressive. So I look forward to them getting more high class opponents going forward, because I don't think they're not going to get soft fights anymore after winning one against one of the most destructive in the field. So they better look
Likewise,
forward to
I don't think they're going to do it last season and take single hits from Copperhead and that be it. I think they're going to hopefully stick around for a bit longer in the fights, and the reliability seems to be there now. We started to see it in Bounty Hunters last year against bots like Tracer and Scorpios, but this was P1 at its absolute finest. It's always good to see a front hinge flipper doing well in.
Do you mean forward thrust?
Forward thrust.
No, I don't mean that. I never will.
One thing I will say is, like, it was very clear that obviously the Valkyrie team were very frustrated at the end of the fight. Of course, that they did so well last year, top 16 placing, only lost to Whiplash pretty much. I mean, obviously Sub-Zero with the bounties as well, but only lost to Whiplash in the main competition.
Yeah. And to be honest, they're 1-1 against Sub-Zero. They lost 1-1.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, it's true. Not the start they would have wanted, especially considering how well they did last year. Work to do, I think, for Valkyrie.
Yeah. But they're very good at playing that long game.
They are.
Yes, definitely. They'll find a way. This is just one chink in their armor. They'll come right back. They're not. I don't think one loss is going to worry them. I have a feeling they'll gear up for their next two fights, and I mean we'll see. We'll see who they get matched up against, but it's definitely gotta linger in your mind now that okay, this is a way that we can be beat. Let's try to iron that out and see that never happens again. It just like what Brandon was saying in the lead up to the fight, where he was hoping that he would shock the inside of the robot somehow, just to cause it to go alight, because that's the idea, is you're trying to send the energy that's being put out of the robot back into it, to just jostle something loose or overload a motor or a speed controller, or just something just to break something. And they clearly succeeded in their goal. And Valkyrie, I guess, got to go back to the drawing board and figure out what blew up.
You can see that everything is getting more powerful, because this is the third week where we've had a fire in the episode.
It's getting very scary.
Yeah.
We're getting close to that lead cube and GoPros on the inside where we can't figure out what's happened until we open it up.
Pretty much. I do wonder as well. I mean, obviously, the robots called P1s, they all give the P1 finger at the end. I was wondering if this is an appeal to the team for information. I wonder, because I know some of them are Formula One fans. I wonder if that's the Sebastian Vettel moniker, the finger at the end. Well, P1 team, let me know. I'm sure one of you will be in touch at some point. Fight 3. I mean, was it a fight? It was, I mean, I suppose they made contact once, and there was a punt of Huge, but it wasn't much to it, was it? It was very one and done.
Now, I have some other information that I don't know if it's true or not, but I believe there was a false start on this fight, and they had to go back and go again.
Yes, I do recall that. Yeah, it was their first fight. It's Ethan's first fight ever on BattleBots, and so it's nerve wracking. It's nerve wracking for me every year.
Couldn't tell he was nervous on the broadcast at all.
No, sort of the adrenaline all rushed out at once.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, but yeah, you're going up against huge, well-respected robot. Usually does very well. So yeah, I mean, you're probably really nervous, and if you're the one tactic might work is box rush,
just full send.
You might be a little trigger happy, and that's it happens. It's okay that they resetted, but yeah.
I mean, credit to them, they made full advantage of the second one, and that really nice second hit where you just see Huge kind of the weapon just stops perfectly. You can kind of see it on the slow-mo, and it just all just wobbles back. It's great, but it's a shame that Huge kind of got stuck, really, isn't it?
And it's one of those things where this new... So,
well, yeah, you're right.
One of the main reasons it got stuck, I think, is because of the new closed off...
the self-righting pole on the side.
Yeah. We've seen it previously get stuck in those screws and get out. I mean, we saw it against Mammoth. We've seen it against loads of robots that they can get out of that slot. So it's interesting to know why they didn't this time. Obviously, the wheels are made of this... UHMW, which flexes when spinners hit it, and the big thing about the screws is that they're basically spinners, and you can see it just wobbling away as it's hitting it, and it can't get any sort of purchase at all on it.
So frustrating after the season they had last year as well, where like obviously the fight with Hydra, has been talked about to death, and who did they fight first? I can't remember.
Mammoth.
That was it, and that was an unfortunate loss as well. And
and they got and in that fight they got a wheel stuck outside.
It's mainly that pole sticking out the side, though. I think is that the little spokes to stop them from getting stuck on their side and looking like a sand timer. That was you can see it sort of scratching along the like inner layer of Lexan. That it's just it can't get away from it, and got a perfect storm for them. Really,
very frustrating for that team for sure.
It's a strange problem. I mean, Axlebots are tricky, and ones like Huge or like Starchild or like Gabriel or bots of this realm or Straddle. A lot of these robots, they have this awkward gangliness, and ways that they can get caught in things that other robots can't. So how are you supposed to plan for something like this is going to happen? I just can't. I can't imagine what was going through Jonathan's head when he's stuck in that screw and just can't escape. It's not like he had lost any tread. It's not like the wheel was too misshapen that it wouldn't get grip. It was just in a place that it just couldn't grab. And it's just a strange failure mode that, I mean, who else other than Huge could lose that way?
Yeah. It's very, very peculiar, isn't it? But I'm sure they'll learn from it. This isn't the first setback that they've had, and I'm sure we'll see Huge fight back much stronger later in the season. And it could, as much as it was a short fight, Riptide absolutely took advantage, and the bot looked solid. You can't
honestly
can't complain.
Yeah, and they're raring to go. I mean, it takes some inspiration from bots around, and you got the Yeti forks. You have the big egg beater, which we've seen throughout all the weight classes. Honestly,
yeah,
I've seen this bounce around.
I think this is one of the most based egg beater designs we've seen in BattleBots. I mean, we've had Railgun Max before, but this is the most sort of you've grown a Norwalk bot into this BattleBots machine.
Basically,
it's there.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Only it was sort of orangish and had some bolts sticking out.
Oh, stop it!
We're very close to that sort of.
Let's move on very quickly, otherwise we'll enter territories then. Let's move on to Fight 4. Fusion and Cobalt. I'm
confused.
I would have to say, Steve called this one, didn't you? You're the only one.
Did.
You were the only one.
I picked the fireworks box, man.
When you say you picked it.
Well, here's the thing. Funny story, Will. We do a predictions pool amongst a group of us, and I am one of the worst. I don't know why, but I'm always even last year I probably was last. It doesn't matter. So this week I decided, you know what, I'm going to leave it up to fate, and I flipped the coin. So, and guess what? I did just about as good as I did last week. So it didn't matter. But I got this one right. While everybody else picked Cobalt. I'm kind of surprised too.
Well, it was very impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah. We hadn't banked on Cobalt having a weird triangle attached to it.
This is true. Yeah. This is what I mean. Where like
I can understand the theory behind it. So I believe the theory is that you've got this. You're adding this sort of plow section to it, so that Fusion's horizontal is the side that will come in and hit.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Fusion's one of these robots that has two weapons and works very nicely with them. So if you're going to go for a horizontal strategy, they're going to go for a vertical.
Yep.
My other thing I think as well with this fight, and again, I'm sure it's take nothing away from Matt Maxim. Matt has only ever driven one style of robot, which is the kind of Sewer Snake Stinger style, full send it into your opponent and break them. And there was a little bit of that I felt with Cobalt. Like he just kept going in at the weapon, which I suppose once you've had 3 or 4 chunks taken out your wedge, you may as well try. But it just seemed like that wasn't working, and I just thought maybe try something different. But I mean, Fusion, to be fair,
heat of the moment. I mean,
yeah,
you
could.
I mean, strategy
hindsight's
goes out the
2020,
window.
isn't it?
Yeah.
But Fusion as well, very impressive, very impressive, and I think
very stable.
It didn't catch fire.
It stayed on the ground. It sought out its targets.
And then let's talk about Reese as well.
Oh my goodness!
What a quote
Television
that is.
King.
Oh, it's just the fact that it's just so deadpan as well. Like
Oh yeah.
Like we spoke to Jake for the first episode. We kind of said he's very personable because he's always got a smile on his face. He's always dicking around with other people, that kind of thing. Reese, I don't get that from Reese. I just kind of get full business. Yep, gonna beat them. That's
Reese fits the sort of the styling of the rest of the Ewok clan, really.
Exactly.
I mean, Jake is very
much
like
1 to 2 word responses.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then he comes out with that, and I was like, oh, where's this come from?
It was really out of left field. But you know what? Hey, you know what? I'm surprised. I'm surprised it didn't end up on the cutting room floor, to be honest with you. But it's
the biggest smile and laugh we've seen out of Kenny Florian.
Yeah.
I don't think Kenny could have got a bigger smile on his face. I think he'd have injured himself had he laughed anymore.
I mean, this must have been like kind of impressive to watch, Will, as well. Like how. I'm sure most people are going into that thinking, okay, Cobalt's probably got this.
Yeah, and in fact, I totally forgot who won this one. And so in one of the Instagram polls, I was like, oh yeah, Cobalt definitely got this.
A lot of fights that happen. I don't blame you.
but I think you touched on it. Matt Maxim's never driven a vertical spinner before. So, it's different. You can't just go in and smash with your face. To the team, Gigabyte team, they're used to horizontal spinners. So they're used to dealing with the protections against horizontal spinners. They don't have to deal with forks or anything like that. There is a fork for configuration for Cobalt, and there's a picture of it, circling around. And I think original Cobalt team sent it with that configuration, but it's not what the new team was used to. It's not what they thought was the right thing, and especially when you're going up against someone like Fusion, like Jevin said, it's 2 different robots basically, and whichever one works better, they will use.
Yeah, it's almost a very winning formula. It's probably one of the first robots since the classic era of robot combat where 2 weapons have worked so well in unison that you don't really have an angle to approach it, because you armor, as I said earlier, you armor for a horizontal, they'll come at you with a vert. You armor for a vert, they'll come out with the horizontal. It's a really sort of difficult one to try and strategize against.
Yeah, frankly, I'm not sure how we would fight them.
I was going to say, like, I'm sure if Cobalt had gone in with the forks, they'd have said, okay, we'll just use the horizontal and cleave them all off then.
Rip them off.
Right.
Like,
but then go for the vert.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair.
It's a very clever one, and I wonder if they can keep Fusion going, how well Fusion does this year, because it's a bit of a dark horse, I feel. Like we all know the Waiachis have got, power up the wazoo of whatever robot they've got, right? It doesn't matter. I would very intrigued, and again, credit to them as well, because they can quite easily sit back and just build your standard 4-wheel drive. No offense, Will. Sorry,
I'm taken.
We got a lot of that
It
last
works.
week. Thanks, Aaron.
But like they you know they could do if they wanted to, and like with both of their machines that they enter now, with Hydra obviously it's a massively powerful flipper and Fusion, which is so different and so hard to kind of deal with.
Right.
It's credit to them for kind of innovating and kind of thinking outside the box, and God bless them for it.
Yeah.
As long as they can keep all that power inside the wazoo.
Correct.
Yes, keep the
Correct.
smoke in the robot.
It's done
That's
what
all.
I said it probably needed to do, which was its only wins in 2020 were against sort of beginners and first-time bots. It's now beaten something that's been before, basically. It's obviously not the same team running it. There's a sort of new dynamic there, as you've touched on earlier. But it's now getting up there to be one of those ones that you go, okay, well, I'll take notice of this one a bit more now.
Yeah, well, they're not getting gimme fights anymore. I don't even think this is they're in the thick of it now. And I also found it kind of funny. There was I think it was the lead up to the fight where they talked about shipping Fusion out to get it worked on, and I thought about
what Jake said about
sending it out, and it started that whole storyline of Hydra failing in its first fight.
Yeah,
so.
blowing up its own speed
Same
controller.
reason.
Whoops.
Maybe
they swapped electronics between Fusion and
Maybe.
Hydra.
It seems like it. It's possible.
Maybe it was a bad batch. We'll never know.
Ruh-roh.
Fight number five. The return of ICEWave to the fray. And Black Dragon with some beautiful artwork on the front of their player. Really nice. Real nice. We did get to hear some nice big ICEWave grumbles in the arena, which has been sorely missed for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was one-way traffic, and
my goodness.
I know what went wrong because I watched the video.
Come on, what is it?
So this in this fight, it was a new ICEWave. They had built a whole new chassis, and the wheels had dropped down a little bit lower. As a result, the drive chains for those wheels are also lower and sort of hanging out the bottom of the holes for the wheels. And so once they're hit, they lose drive, which is what we saw happen.
Yeah. What happened to the weapon? Is what I'm interested in.
It threw a belt. I think a belt.
Okay.
You could see a belt fly. I think at one point during the fight, if I recall correctly. I don't have it up here. But yeah, it was curtains after the weapon stopped, and Black Dragon just started going ham, and it was over before we knew it. This was such a quick fight.
Yeah, ICEWave's biggest problem is they cannot spin up quickly enough. If they
true.
could get their spin up time down, then that'd be great. But no one's going to give them 5 seconds, 10 seconds anymore. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's definitely starting to come across as a robot from a bygone era of which is weird because it's only like this version of this machine design concept has been around for a while, but like BattleBots has only been back for 6 years.
Right.
It's crazy how fast.
I mean, to be fair, 2 years ago was a bygone era.
So, pretty much. It's a shame to see, but obviously, it's a machine that I think all of us would like to see back.
I don't think we saw Black Dragon firing on all cylinders either in this fight.
Well, they didn't need to.
No, I suppose not. But yeah, it was. This wasn't Black Dragon at its fiercest.
No. But
Do you think that hurts them later for a seeding, or that we were talking too early?
Not really, because they've still got the KO in decent time and against a veteran.
It's against the legend, isn't it? So you can't.
Yeah.
Either way. I mean, as well. For me, it's just good to see ICEWave back. We haven't seen it since 2018. Was that the last time we saw it? I mean, obviously, the bounty last year as well. But
excluding the bounty and also excluding Vegas, the Remars event.
Of course.
We won't talk about the ripping apart of ICEWave.
The taffying.
That was weird.
It was a weird time.
I
was expecting that too, because Vert against Blade. Blade not spinning up, possibly similar. But
I'll be interested.
All I know is my coin
if
predicted
that was
this one,
S7 in that
bloody S7
Vegas
is
fight.
coming back for it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
not much to talk about in that fight.
No, there really wasn't. Let's talk about fight 6. Your noisy neighbors. Your noisy neighbors, Will and Witch Doctor.
Oh yes. Yeah, they had a rough go of it. It wasn't quite working right.
No.
Not quite.
I mean, to be fair, Duck seemed to have its own issues as well. I think Hal actually put a big post out on the team page and his own page about how it just wasn't driving correctly at all in the whole fight, and you kind of
steering
see
off to one side and all sorts of things.
Yeah, there wasn't much you could do with Witch Doctor, but Witch Doctor, to their credit, got the early hits and won the fight then and there, and actually out pushed Duck, which I was quite surprised at.
Yeah, well, again,
Yeah.
Hal said Duck shouldn't be able to be out pushed like that. It definitely wasn't running right. It should be more pushy.
I say, Will, I don't know if you know anything about what happened to Witch Doctor.
Yeah, so they rigidly mounted all their weapon motors to the mid rail across the robot in the back behind the weapon.
Mhm.
And what happened was when they started slamming into things and hitting things, that started to bend.
Ooh.
And in that bending moment, jammed the motors. And so
And they couldn't
all of
spin
a
anymore.
sudden, yeah, they thought at the end that it could probably get it going a little bit, but it was just going to smoke, and that is worse and expensive and not unnecessary.
It
'cause,
also
like,
goes against them massively in the judge's decision.
right, yeah, it just looks bad. So they slowed down the weapon and just went to pushing and shoving. For future fights, they switched how they mounted the weapon motors. So they actually mount to the base plate moving forward instead of that front rail. So that as long as that is bending, it's not going to jam the motor up.
Mm.
Bit of information on the fly there, to be fair, as well. With this fight, I mean, the only thing that I noticed after the kind of the weapon had gone away was the amount of tire smoke that was left out on the floor.
Yes.
Like, you could see like a lot of blue smoke coming from both machines. It was great to watch, and just showing how much torque and drive power these machines have now. But yeah,
I did appreciate Witch Doctor making Duck look better by removing one of those.
oh
long
come
forks.
on, Jevon.
Oh my goodness.
It's a really ugly setup.
We're
sorry.
never gonna have Hal here ever.
They're so
They're gonna
big.
hate us.
They are chunky forks.
They're thick and long.
Yeah.
And
Jevon doesn't like things thick and long.
Well, as the end
Can we
game
keep
team,
that?
end game team. Oh, it's staying in. You said it now. As the end game team did a breakdown of their fight, and they said that the long forks, it's just not a good idea because obviously you turn and end up hitting stuff instead of being able to get round and underneath stuff. It's the downside to having long forks, and obviously Duck has that long fork setup, so among others, which look progressively more and more interesting. It's just
I'm not fond of the fork meter either. I don't think many people are. But
and also you can't hear the quacking on TV, making it
right. You know,
Yeah.
tad pointless.
But I appreciate the fact that he knows it's there. And
Yeah.
if there's ever a fight where Duck has like like the basement fights with the raw audio, you'll hear it then.
You
Yes.
might. They definitely added it in post in this fight a lot.
yeah, it's all right.
I
It's a thought that counts kind of a little bit. You know, it's
Exactly.
good for the
I will say it's lovely to have Duck back.
yes.
And to have Hal back and Hannah and the team again. It's the biggest team that Duck has had, I think.
Sure does look like it. Yeah.
To be fair as well, we did see a few grabs in the beak as well, which is quite interesting. Different tactics, but
Yeah, kind of pushed them like this.
yeah,
Yeah.
There's,
Coming
I
in
think-
very pensive on how it was even going to work. You know, I was curious as to how this machine even lifted.
But it's
12
not.
inches in
It's
the air.
not just that. It's this as well, isn't it?
Right. That's true.
So hopefully we'll get to see it working at full whack. I trust in Hal that he will get it working, and we'll get to see the best version of this version of Duck we're going to get.
Another thing for me as well is the fact that if you look at Duck, Duck's been away now since 2019 as well, and they're coming in against an elite level machine. Like, let's not
It's a
forget.
tough first draw.
Let's not forget. Witch Doctor merely 2 years ago was finishing second just to Bite Force, and won in Vegas. And okay, last year they had all their problems, but that was mostly down to their weapon exploding on contact, as we've already discussed. Yes. So, yeah, I think Duck deserves a lot of credit for taking it 3 minutes, but
Yeah. I feel like there was a lot cut from this fight because there's a lot of pushy shovey.
Yeah, it's still definitely the bot that will not break.
Yes,
for sure.
It's just it keeps going.
For sure. Our exclusive YouTube fight this week is Claw Viper and Pardon My French.
Talk about Zoom, man.
Oof. I mean,
So fast.
yes.
I was going to say, Will,
Incredibly fast.
does this kind of make you think, oh, maybe Hypershock's not fast enough now?
We've got to see. We've got to see
No.
part 2 of that time trial
There you go.
from 2019.
I really don't want to deal with magnets, and Claw Viper has massive magnets on the bottom of it just to be able to do that. And the same with Tantrum, so zoomy, so darty. I don't think I want that. I like my drifts.
You heard it here first.
Who is faster? That's what I want to know. Who is the fastest BattleBot? Is it still Hypershock or?
It's a great question. Across the box, it might be a toss-up. We still have a very high top speed at like 25, 26. Claw Viper, I think, is up to 20. I think Tantrum was 18 or 20. But they can get there so much quicker. See
Right.
aforementioned magnet. So
Yes.
their 0 to max speed time is ridiculous. But we can go faster. So
Yeah. All comes down to acceleration and box space.
do it in the parking lot, we'll win.
Right. I was going to say drag
feel
strip
like
it up and then.
But if it's a circuit,
I missed those segments. Well, the thing is, I guess we kind of have those segments now, but like those like mid-commercial segments where like you guys would do something fun, in the background, or like the cold opens. I miss the cold opens. Is it bad that I missed the cold
Cold
opens?
opens
No,
Yeah,
they
cool.
were great.
They were
I
good
suppose-
fun.
Claw Viper still struggles with driving, I feel,
Yeah.
because
A little
it is fast, but they need to then hone it in. I wonder, so do they drive stick or do they drive pistol?
Stick.
Yeah, so it would be easier for them potentially if they learn stick, but
I think everyone should learn how to use pistol grips. They'll get so much better. Look
Yeah.
at every robot. You're like, wow, that's a little too darty and a little too like oversteery. And look at what transmitter they're holding. Every time,
yeah,
every single time, it's a joystick.
I mean, it says a lot that we're talking a lot about Claw Viper because this wasn't much of a fight. Unfortunately,
No,
pardon
it
my
was
French,
a
never really
lovely
got going.
suplex.
There was.
Yes,
a
it
lovely
was.
suplex.
That
They just didn't get going, did
classy.
they? Unfortunately.
No, have you got a Shremek? No.
Ooh.
Not
Oh.
yet.
Combat robot floor posting in the mud. Let's
Yes.
look,
I did see that sticker. in the fight. That is very naughty.
I mean, let's take nothing away from Claw Viper. They were absolutely excellent, and that suplex was spot on.
Yeah.
Works really well.
I do feel sorry for Pardon My French.
Me too.
That it was a team that was meant to have more people on their team to help out with the bot and everything. The bot did a Hypershock and went missing before the season, and it turned
That's the
out
excitement.
happily. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, they were meant to have some of the teammates from over here in the UK come over and help out, but unfortunately that didn't happen because of COVID restrictions and everything. So yeah, they had a difficult time of it going in, and the bot has its flaws at this point. There are already revisions up of it, showing off they have now got a Shremek and they have got a bigger, scarier drum.
It was already
But
big and
that's what it was
scary.
missing.
Yeah, to be fair, more power was or a heavier
Yeah,
weapon
yeah.
was needed.
So yeah, it's going to be a force to be reckoned with, but definitely warming up in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was expecting like blue colored red rum, like just huge chunky
I think
discs.
that's
and
what we're going to
huge
get in the
hits.
future, hopefully.
I really hope so, because it looks cool. I like the color scheme. I like that it's compact. It just wasn't there this time, and credit to them for showing up, and but Claw Viper just was classy.
And the best
I'm going to
fight-
have to quickly veto myself. It's a Trisk, not a drum. Sorry.
Oh, God, Devon. Your chart
you
is
would put me in my
ruined.
place, wouldn't you?
Is it? No, I put myself in my place because I've said drum as well.
Actually, I forgot.
Oh, well.
I forgot the best bit of this fight is when Claw Viper picks up Zoot and just delivers it back.
This is
Yeah,
true, and
just
then
sends
stubs
it.
its toe on the wall.
Yeah,
It's so.
it is really sort of going ow at the end of
Yeah.
it, isn't it?
It's like it broke it. Like I don't know, like it broke its foot or something. Like literally.
It was
Yeah.
rough.
And it's like, it's at one side. Oh, dear.
Call mom, call
Here
mom.
comes PETA again, right? Here comes the police to say this is animal cruelty all over
Yeah.
again.
God
Yeah.
damn it. Let's talk about our main event now. Speaking of animal cruelty, okay, we're not.
That's just a way to go into this, isn't it?
Wow.
Okay, so for my 2 cents here, I'm not a massive fan of there being a live snake at filming. Let's
No.
just leave it at that. Okay, it's its own kind of thing, but
I think it was outwardly bad enough that it was in the pits, and the fact that they've taken it to the loud arena.
Yeah,
of course,
I wasn't-
snakes feel.
I
those
wasn't a
hits
massive
in the
fan of
air.
that. Yeah, I wasn't a massive fan of that. But I suppose we're not here to talk about animal cruelty. We're here to talk
No.
about robot fighting. This was a really good match. Really good match.
Yeah, really solid.
Donald doing his driving thing as always, just keeping that. It's not even an ass wedge. It's an ass.
No.
Plow. It was.
Wow,
it was
yeah.
so. I believe it is the learning.
Bumper, shield.
Yeah. I believe it's the learning of Rusty last season, who had the big flat edge that Copperhead could do nothing to.
Mm-hmm.
And they've tried something of their own, make it sort of more mutant roboticsy and make it angled, and it hasn't really worked because they bounce and they sort of twerked their way up on Copperhead, which is unfortunate.
LockJaw does always seem like it's bouncing on the moon a little bit. Like it does always seem like it's bouncing around the box when it rolls.
Yeah, I was noticing that in this last match, especially when they're going forward. You see the forks start to lift up.
Yeah,
like, no, that's the last thing you want. And I know
honestly,
it's because the weapon staying on the ground, and that part's great. But like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be fair as well, in this fight, Copperhead did manage to knock one of those forks right the way back over and kind of out of the way, so it wasn't really an issue anymore.
Except when he was stuck upside down on it.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, so another thing I took away from this fight is you can kind of tell it's not Zack driving anymore. And this is not a shade at Robin, but there was definitely a moment where LockJaw is stuck on its head and they could have left it. Now, I know in the fight, I kind of said in the Fight Night fight, you may want to release him for those extra, hits and style points and what have you. If it was in the bracket, he probably would have left it alone.
Yeah.
But I still think Copperhead was fully, at the top of its game in this fight. And
I mean, there is something glaring in this fight that we've not talked about, which is the massive fuck off fire.
Well, that's that too.
It's a LockJaw. That's a LockJaw.
It's LockJaw. I'd really hoped after Bounty Hunters last year, it was so clean and so smooth, and then the
first fight
brushless
back
is
first
gone
fight
again.
Back, yeah.
Damn it. Well, he's always overvolting his stuff to stupid levels, to try to get as much out of his equipment as possible. We talked to him, we know.
Yeah.
So
the other thing as well that got me was it was a split decision.
Yes,
yeah,
that was curious.
This is a strange one, and I don't think they've shown off the points for it either, which I hope they had. And I went back to have a look and couldn't see it anywhere. Whether I've missed it again, I don't know. But
the decision seems like it was right. It doesn't seem like it was overly controversial.
No,
I
the decision's right. Just the fact that it was split was interesting.
Yeah. Yes.
Because in what universe has LockJaw won that?
I don't know. Fight court, Mike. You're a busy guy, but we could do that. I don't know.
Or Derek, Derek, let us know why you thought LockJaw won that, because it was. Don't get me wrong. I could see some logic because I felt LockJaw was the better controlled, and especially towards the end where Copperhead seemed to be a little bit suffering. I don't think it had. Well, I think one of its sides of drive was a little bit damaged, maybe, but I felt the damage definitely came in its favor, and I'm a bit surprised. I mean, Will, I don't know about what you think.
I'm with you. It's Copperhead started to look a little bit lethargic at the end. Maybe it's certain batteries or whatever, and new season for everybody, so everyone's kind of trying to make sense of how the robot's going to perform in a year. But yeah, it seemed pretty handedly to Copperhead. Yeah,
I mean the drum never stopped; it just kept going, and I mean it was tearing pieces. It was a really solid affair. Right decision.
A slugfest. Good main event.
Really good main event. I think it's up there with I mean, there's only been 3 so far this season.
I do also want to highlight how much more personable Robert Cohen seems this season. I've sometimes, occasionally, I'm very sorry, Robert, made the joke of Robot Cohen because he seems very in the moment. This is the robot. This is what we're doing, and this is how we're doing it.
I like the double drills in the pit.
But yeah, the stacking of drills and everything, and the
too good
brushing of the wheels. I'm guessing that's
shithousery.
Yeah, it's just, and there's snake fights in the background of all the interviews. That's always fun
great.
as well.
So
and another thing, which I'm really glad has come back this year is obviously Kimberly, his wife, I think that's her name, isn't it?
Yes.
The artwork.
The artwork again.
Kim's art's awesome.
Oh, she did a beautiful job.
I believe
Every
the Top Zone are labelling this episode Cobra Die instead of Cobra Kai, which I like because it's very, very nice artwork on that one this time. Coiling LockJaw.
Yeah. Very, and they definitely made sure to show it off as much as they could do, and so they should, because I hope they do it for every fight this year, because it was
this fight was accidentally revealed to the supporters that BattleBots did a tour of the pits before as the season was beginning. Filming, and they went to the Copperhead one and said, and here's Copperhead, and just showed the drum that already had the artwork on, and we were like,
there it is.
Fight confirmed.
Maybe they'll learn next season, who knows, but
I believe Greg's exact words were, the spies are out.
Oh no.
If you're going to show us the fight, We're not spying. We're just seeing.
Yeah, we're connecting the dots. It's
Yeah.
anybody with a pencil can do
The
it.
dots that are written in big skyscraper words.
I'm
Absolutely.
gonna get some Vaseline and put it over his phone's camera anytime.
Like a dream sequence, Ooh.
Yeah, we'll all look way better, and it'll help.
Oh dearie. Will, thank you very much for joining us. It has to be said, coming back this year, Hypershock has always been that kind of. There's so much potential. There is so, and you just kind of think, oh, if it gets a good run, it could definitely win it.
If only.
If only.
After that first
Yeah.
fight, did you think, okay, there's a chance?
Yeah. At the end of the fight, the weapon wasn't working. So we were a
we
little
haven't really
nervous.
spoken about
But
this.
Yeah, what happened?
yeah, it's a relatively simple and stupid thing. We went to chains last year, and we kept it for this year. And in order to make space work, we had to the slip clutches from last year didn't fit anymore, so we had to make like a half slip clutch. So instead of two friction discs on either, one on either side of the sprocket, we just had one. And on the other side, it was just the Belleville washer and nut. And so and there was one on either side. They're both right-hand threads. So one of them is trying to tighten
Oops.
the whole time, and one of them is trying to loosen the whole time. So on that last big hit against Slammo, that was enough to to break through all the green Loctite that we had crammed in there, and we let it cure 24 hours the whole bit. It was supposed to be legit, but wasn't enough. So it rapidly unthreaded itself and jammed the whole motor assembly. It took us about an hour to get it apart, and there was a busted bearing in the motor, but the motor itself was fine. Nothing was smoked. We went over to Lincoln Tent and had them put a little tack weld on the two slip clutches,
Smart.
so they just don't come apart anymore.
Ever.
I mean, I think it's the
ever.
least, especially from the Discovery reboot, it's the least amount of damage you've taken coming out of a first fight.
Yes, absolutely. So we were happy. We were over the moon. We were totally jazzed, and at that point we had an opportunity to start building the second robot. So we had a team outside welding up the second chassis, putting together the second weapon, all the drivetrain. My now wife was wiring up the second chassis. So it was this weird opportunity where we had some time to actually build the second one, which had never been done before.
It's
Ominous
new
for the rest of the field,
territory.
isn't it? Surely, if you've got time to build a second robot. As I said, Will, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, as always.
Yeah.
Always pleasure to have me.
And we've also learned that no amount of Loctite will keep anything on a robot.
It's
We
true.
learned that from hijinks last week.
It's
so,
true.
I mean,
Yeah.
but still.
Sticky glue is
Yes.
There's only so far it can go. With that said,
It's more
though,
gaffer.
I have been Sam Elliott 64.
I've been Steve the American Killjoy.
I have been Walter Woodrow.
I've been Will.
And the three of us will see you next week for more BattleBots Season 6. We'll see you then.